Fields on that.
Jamie, can I let you go first?
Okay, yeah, I'll go first, even though I'm the host and I'm in charge. I will allow you to request that I will go before you. This is a tough decision for me as well. So we're gonna play a game.
I love games.
For the next segment of the show, a version of Mary that of course we've never played that game in real life because we're adults and we respect women and stuff. But we are gonna do sit one, start one, and cut one. So bench, cut, and start. The 3 players I have selected here for the first part of this segment: Dalvin Cook, Alvin Kamara, and Javonte Williams. Dalvin Cook, a guy who will be a New York Jet in about 8 days. He'll sign a 2-year, $18 million contract with the New York Jets, and he will be the bell cow back ahead of Breece Hall there. Alvin Kamara, a guy who will start this season suspended. He looked absolutely electric in the preseason in the limited time that we saw him. And Javonte Williams, a guy who we have not seen yet, ahead of schedule for the Broncos, a young guy coming off of a horrific knee injury that happened in the season last year, I think around the mid-season last year. Guy who didn't even start on the PUP list, coming in to camp incredibly healthy, it appears, and a lot of buzz that we're hearing out of camp. So they're going in similar spots in best ball drafts. So we will say this is a best ball pick, okay, for the format. So that's half PPR. What are you thinking? Caleb, I'll have you go first.
So I'm going to just go ahead and start Dalvin.
Yep.
I'm going to bench Alvin, and I'm going to cut Javonte Williams.
Okay.
And I know that that's kind of scary because I'm taking the older running backs. Yeah. But that's just because... and you're going to not like this because I'm looking at it from a numbers perspective right now. I'd rather fall back on a metric, like a proven guy who's at least had systems in the league for both Dalvin and Alvin, the Alvin brothers, and no Javonte Williams, just because of that last season being cut short with that injury. Yes, Dalvin Cook, Alvin Kamara, starter, second. Alvin Kamara, you're on the bench.
Drew?
All right. I'll start Alvin Kamara.
Okay.
And then I will bench Javonte Williams, and then I will cut Dalvin Cook.
You son of a bitch. What is your thought process on Dalvin Cook?
I don't know, man. He's going to a place like the Giants where it's not it's going to be I think it's going to be the second toughest division in football compared to the NFC North.
Okay.
I think because all 4 teams are just so good, and he's just now going to sign. So he's not going to get enough time. He's injury proven. Like Javonte, he's in a softer division. I mean, you got the Chiefs, and then what else?
Raiders.
Yeah. Okay, but like I'm saying, I'd rather roll the dice on a young kid than somebody that's been hurt a little bit more in his career, because Dalvin Cook's injury history isn't the greatest.
Yeah,
so.
He did start all 17 games last season. He did get a shoulder surgery. That's been his biggest knock on his body, is his shoulder has been chronically unstable, and he's been putting off the surgery for a while, and he finally got it this offseason. So who knows how explosive he's looking. I'm expecting him to look explosive when he does come and play.
Yep.
And I'm hoping to see that shoulder injury not pop up again in the future, because that has been the only thing that has sidelined him. That's the only reason we know Alexander Mattison is an absolute freak and will perform extremely well. 2 years ago, whenever he came in, he lit the scoreboard up in real life and in fantasy football. So I'm glad that we are in disagreement. I am in agreement with Caleb, I think 100%. I am starting Dalvin Cook for the New York. He's going to be a New York Jet. I think Aaron Rodgers is going to dump him off the ball a lot. He's just going to get a lot of touches, and he's going to be an explosive offense. I am going to – so I think I would have flipped this if you would have asked me this a week ago when I first wrote this. But after seeing Alvin Kamara, I'm just going to – start Dalvin Cook for the first 3 games and then see how Alvin Kamara looks coming back. Jamal Williams and Now an injured Kendre Miller will be his only threat. I think they are fielding some like Kareem Hunt on visits and stuff, but Alvin Kamara, I don't think his career is quite as over as I would have liked it to be, because I did just trade him in Dynasty this past offseason.
But Russell Wilson's is after these highlights. Just letting you know.
Russell Wilson did play like a whole half of this game. I'm like, man, this is crazy. This is a quarterback competition, like legit over here in Denver.
Yeah, this motherfucker should have stuck to baseball.
Man,
I will do burpees
man.
on that. I don't even care.
I think that counts. I don't think that counts.
I just realized a head injury in me did the Giants and the Jets.
Yeah, no, we knew what you were talking about.
Sorry.
No, you're
about.
good.
It's all good. Yeah, Russ, 7 of 13 for 93 yards.
He got excited, dude. No way. I've never seen someone so excited their career's over.
Yeah,
Except
DTR. Now we're seeing Joe Burrow and
Jordan Love.
But
only one of those is in pads, by the way. You can guess.
Yeah, well, and that calf is looking a lot better than. Oh. I did see somebody post like, hey, if this was a starter that Jordan Love was throwing to, that ball would have been caught. That was Christian Watson that he threw the ball to, his number one target this offseason. Romeo Dubs. I'm a big believer in Jordan Love as a talent, and going forward in this league, I think he's going to look really, really good because he has to. There's no reason he won't.
Absolutely.
Romeo Dubs. I'm a big. So I got Dubs and Christian Watson in my Dynasty Startup League, and I am just absolutely ecstatic about those two prospects. Moving on. Now we're going to premium young quarterbacks. So this will be, I'm going to call this format Dynasty format, and I'm going to call it point per first down in this format. So the rushing first downs, whether it is a QB sneak or a scramble, you will get a point for that for these quarterbacks. Joe Burrow, Justin Fields, Justin Herbert. You have to start one, you have to sit one, you have to bench one. Drew, I will have you go first on this next segment.
This is like the group of death here in the World Cup.
Because you got to cut one of these guys.
Because you have to cut one of these guys, and all right, you guys are gonna say I don't know football, but this is because I'm gonna start Justin Herbert. Because I love Justin Herbert.
Oh, yeah.
I thought he was the stud out of Oregon. So I've been a Justin Herbert fan for a long time. And I think with the Chargers, they're just going to get better. Their offense is just going to snap. I'm going to have to bench Joe Burrow because Joe Burrow is Joe Burrow, and he's been making things happen in Cincinnati. I hate to do this because he looks so good right now in Chicago, and he's just tearing it up.
They're going to have to score a lot of points.
But gosh, I have to cut him.
Yep.
You got to cut one.
You got to cut one of them.
You got to. So I'm going to have to cut Justin Fields on that.
Jamie, can I let you go first?
Okay, yeah, I'll go first. Even though I'm the host and I'm in charge, I will allow you to request that I will go before you. This is a tough decision for me as well. I did recently just draft Justin Herbert in my Dynasty Startup League. 10th overall fell to me, so I was really, really excited about that. SuperFlex,
You're
of course.
welcome.
Yeah, that was a awesome thing to see. Justin Herbert. Also will be throwing Quentin Johnston, looked great. Everyone's like giving him a hard time because he like dropped one pass. That would have been a tough catch. He's gonna figure it out. All right. I'm not worried about Quentin Johnston, my number one ranked wide receiver in this rookie class. So I do love Justin Herbert. Justin Fields. The only thing that gives me pause on him since this is Dynasty, I am concerned that he will not get signed to a second contract with the Bears. That is that's within the realm of possibility still at this part of his career. They're not married to him yet, like Joe Burrow, or I guess Joe Burrow isn't either, but it's Cincinnati Joe. What are we talking about? He's going to get signed to a big long contract, and maybe Justin Fields doesn't get extended, or is dealing with franchise tag situation where he's not going to show up in camp and potentially ruin one of my seasons. So for that reason, I am going to start Joe Burrow.
Okay.
I'm going to sit Justin Herbert, and just because of the unknown in the future, I am going to cut Justin Fields who in this format has the highest cap of points, in my opinion, because he will be running for a lot of first downs this season. So I might have just cut the highest scorer out of the list in this format. But for the long-term implications, I'm going to do that. Caleb.
Okay. So in this arrangement with Joe Burrow, Justin Fields, Justin Herbert, I think this is so easy in my personal mindset just because I fucking hate the Bears. Mm-hmm. Can't stand the Bears. I don't think they're going to be put together enough to be able to let him be as everyone's expecting him to be good. Everyone's expecting this team to have their shit together. I don't see it. Despite how good he's looking, I think Justin Fields is going to have to get cut. Okay. And I think that's easy for me. I am easy to cut Justin Fields. Justin Herbert, however, especially with a developing offense with a stable offensive line, Austin Eckler in his backfield, and a Keenan Allen, Quentin Johnston, only hoping for a good upside for him, even though I'm not hyped up entirely. Yeah, Mike Williams, of course, as well. But he's got a great selection of people to get the ball to. Yep. Justin Herbert's my starter, and Joe Burrow's my backup. I would be elated to say that because of my sad real-life Dynasty quarterbacks.
Yeah, also probably smart to have him benched to start the season, right? On your bench technically for this thought process, because he is dealing with a calf injury and maybe will start slow like he did last year coming off the appendectomy, getting his appendix pulled out of his human body in the preseason.
Funny story about appendix. I went to the Dallas Cowboys versus Washington Commanders game last year at Dallas Cowboy Stadium, and I had an appendix burst while I was at the game, and I still walked back to my car and got lost to where my car was, and then went to the hospital the next day, and they said, "Oh, we need to get you in surgery right away." Yeah. So that's just another football story with an appendix.
What a gritty performance out of you as a Commanders fan.
I had this jersey on. Yeah. Had this. I was the only Redskins fan
bile pouring into your guts.
All Cowboys fans in front of me, and they were all like, "Oh man, we're happy." When the Redskins would do well, I get really happy. And then, there's the slow host crowds that was clowning me every time they could when the Redskins was winning, but was losing. But I almost fought a little kid because he threw icy on these bad boys. Wow. And I was like, you know what? Please get your little cousin, because I really don't want to fight with an appendix bursting, please.
By the way, who's your starting quarterback?
I love Sam Howell. I am a Sam Howell guy. I think he's the future. I think we're doing the Patrick Mahomes with him where he sat for a little bit. I like when we drafted him. I think he's great. I hate that we let go of Taylor Heineke. I thought Heineke was a leader guy. You pay him because he is a culture guy. Mm-hmm. He is a culture guy that you keep. But when you get Jacoby Brissett.
Yep. Just about to say it. Culture guy.
Culture guy right there, and I think he's going to be a good guy to help. We're in a very good quarterback competition, and I love that for our team. We need that fire, and we have Benamy there that's getting everyone no walking during practice. We need to jog. We got that. Let's go.
Yeah, Eric Bieniemy, people complaining about him and how tough he is as a
but that's going to be our coach next year. So
at least I think he's a real deal candidate as head coach, as well as Sam Howell also is a real deal candidate at QB1. Really? I think so.
I am not as sold as I will admit his ceiling is much higher than Jacoby Brissett's ceiling. I think we kind of know what Jacoby Brissett is, who is like an average starting quarterback. That kind of level of quarterback, in my opinion. I think he's, which is not, it's like, top 20 quarterback in the NFL. That's not saying nothing. But Sam Howell could definitely figure it out. I'm not sold on it. I think Jacoby Brissett's going to be the starter there for the most games this season. I also think you might get a head coaching change pretty early if things go south.
Honestly, I could see it.
Commanders.
I think Benamy doesn't take the offensive coordinator job at the Washington Commanders if he's not promised to succeed Ron Rivera. Ron Rivera's already survived cancer. He's already there. He's not going to move from a Super Bowl dynasty over to the Washington Commanders without the promise of a head coach job. He should have been a head coach at least 2 years ago.
I think the reason he went there is because he was not involved whatsoever at Kansas City, and he has sat for several interviews and as a head coach, and he's not gotten a position because everyone knows that's Andy Reid's office. And now Nagy over there is kind of looking like the real offensive coordinator. That's who Patrick Mahomes was talking to in quarterback. And, of course, Andy Reid, I think, is obviously calling plays there. So I think that's why Bieniemy went there, because he is desperate for an opportunity to prove himself as a true offensive coordinator. So that's my take. I totally disagree with you. You probably will be right because you're got your pulse on the Washington Commanders team as a whole. Which moves us on to our final. Kenny Pickett, Baker Mayfield, and Mac Jones. I am the most excited for this one, so I guess I'll lead the way on this one. I am going to cut Kenny Pickett because obviously I'm cutting Kenny Pickett. That guy stinks, and that offense is going to stink this year. It stunk last year. There's no reason whatsoever for it to improve, except that one 8th round draft pick who ran a 4.0 40 allegedly at the combine. I think Kenny Pickett stinks. I think he's done in the next 2 years. I am going to bench Baker Mayfield. Of course, I think he is a guy who can change the trajectory of his career, a guy who looked great in the preseason game that he made it into. I think he's going to win the starting position in Tampa Bay. And I think a guy who could really have a resurgence to kind of be that kind of Jacoby Brissett type player where he is a top 20 quarterback in the league year after year. We've seen it happen twice so far in his rookie year and his third season in the NFL. He looked great. We've seen him be in probably the worst situations imaginable as a quarterback getting drafted to the Cleveland Browns. Obviously not a good start to your career when you're getting drafted to the Cleveland Browns, especially the situation he was there. And that coaching staff was just absolutely horrendous. They didn't know what they were doing. Turmoil in the organization, a lot of turnover. And he still was able to perform rookie year and his third season with Coach Kevin Stefanski before they allegedly got into fights and did not like each other, did not care for each other too much in his second and third year with Stefanski. I think that Tampa Bay offense can look a lot better if that offensive line stays healthy. Of course, we're hearing reports that Rachaad White went down with a non-contact injury, but he was able to go off on his own power. So who knows what's going on there with the running back position in Tampa. A lot of the good news, if your running backs go down now, you got a lot of talented veterans to choose from. And then I'm going to start Mac Jones. He made the Pro Bowl his rookie year. I think despite Bill Belichick's hatred for him, I think he's going to have a lot better year in New England than he did last year when Matt Patricia, I'm a Lions fan. I know the brilliance of Matt Patricia. Talk about a guy who just stinks, but I think he's going to have a more powerful offense. And his wide receivers still aren't great, but I think it's a guy who can really put it together. A guy who I was really looking close at in the Dynasty draft because he fell so far down. I'm like, this guy could be a starter in the league for the next 8 years if everything falls his way in New England or at another team. He might be a guy that might usurp Kirk Cousins in Minnesota. I don't think that would be crazy to happen. I think Mac Jones is a talented guy and a guy who can really turn it around in his third year after a very disappointing second year that I don't think necessarily was his fault. Caleb, you're up next.
I agree with you. I could totally see the Vikings not having the balls to draft a talent and signing somebody in free agency at QB1. I am going to start Baker Mayfield for the exact same reason. I think Tampa is one of those party places. Drew Gronk. Baker's going to be right at home anywhere in Florida that he can land, however many cubic tons of whatever he's into that offseason. Baker Mayfield, go for it. Live in your stadium. Make yourself at home. Mac Jones, you'll be my backup guy because you don't wear 2 gloves as a quarterback, which I had to try to get with during the Teddy Bridgewater Minnesota Vikings spout that ended also in a non-contact injury. And that's when we went and signed Sam Bradford, and Sam Bradford died. And then we had to go with Case Keenum to the NFC Championship that scored, that's just trauma at this point. Bye, Kenny Pickett. You're no longer with us. Baker Mayfield, you're my starter. And Mac Jones, I'm happy to say, if I need to, I got you. Nice. And I'm assuming you will have me as well. So, yep, those are my 3 in that order.
Okay, Drew.
All right, this is the toilet bowl. We went from the group of death to the toilet bowl. I see what you did there.
Yeah.
I feel like Kenny Pickett is just god-awful. I'm going to agree with Caleb. I think that Baker Mayfield may have a real good place in Tampa.
All right.
They're getting their shit together. The whole Brady experiment was cool, but I think now they're starting to really find their way. So I think Mayfield may be a very successful person. And Mac Jones, you don't know how Belichick is gonna treat him. If he's not getting any wiggle room, what can he do there? So I think Mac Jones will be a good little bench guy. Consistent, but not the guy that can make things happen. I think Baker is the guy that can make things happen. He's a little bit more of a gamble, but he can make things happen.
Love it. So you're starting Baker Mayfield. So you guys
Yes.
both like Baker Mayfield more than me, a Cleveland Browns fan who I love. I became a Browns fan because of Baker Mayfield.
I dislike Baker Mayfield as an individual. Yeah, because I love how he can be energetic, but it also comes at the expense of him being a little cocky.
Yeah.
And so that's something I don't like to see, but whenever they can string it together, and I don't want to say I dislike Mac Jones, but when a quarterback is not supported or facilitated by a coaching staff, I've lived that with Mike Zimmer at the helm for the Minnesota Vikings head coach with Kirk Cousins. He wanted nothing to do with Kirk Cousins. Teddy Bridgewater was his guy. He drafted. He wanted to rehab him, re-sign him. Our GM did not want a part of that. And then that's how we ended up with Kirk Cousins. And, now that he's actually being embraced, last year was the first time you've ever seen a head coach support him, and they have history together in Washington. Mac Jones, I just don't see you consistently performing where I need you to. And I can only hope that's what Baker Mayfield is looking to do every week with that quarterback competition. I need to see Baker Mayfield at QB1.
So we all decided to cut Kenny Pickett, which I think you guys would all agree. The funny part about that is he is the least likely out of the list to get benched in week 6 of this
Very
NFL
true.
season.
Yeah.
I think Mac Jones could definitely get benched with his poor relationship with his head coaching staff. And Baker Mayfield, who's currently in a QB competition, a guy who might not even start. That's definitely possible. A guy who might not even start this season, which is kind of why I put Mac Jones as my starter over Baker Mayfield, because I am confident Mac Jones is going to start as the quarterback this season, and I'm unsure of that with Baker Mayfield. Although I am confident that he will. I think there's a 13% chance that he does not get the start over Kyle Trask in Tampa Bay. But yeah, I do love that we all just hate Kenny Pickett, and he will start 17 games this season for the Pittsburgh Steelers.
Hey, but no, specifically, it's only 17 because they will not be making the playoffs. So, sorry, George Pickens.
If you're wrong, you're gonna get a post-it age like milk.
I hope. Like I said,
Caleb.
competition breeds success. Give me a Kenny Pickett that actually can propel an organization, and I'll say, good job.
Yeah.
But until then, I'd rather take someone who isn't even guaranteed a starting job, Baker Mayfield.
Hell yeah. All right, so that will wrap it up for today. I think we're over an hour in. So Caleb, I will not make fun of you for your terrible startup Dynasty SuperFlex draft.
Yep.
Drafting Bryce Young as your first quarterback in the 5th round, a guy who's going to take at least 2 years to develop, who is inheriting a pretty shitty offense in Carolina. Just lost his number 1 receiver who touched one ball in his preseason game. The first play took a screen pass for 80 yards into the end zone from Justin Fields, who you guys didn't see that play. It was a bad pass. It was a really bad pass. He did not put it on. He did not have good momentum going forward in that play. And then you got Kirk Cousins as your second quarterback at the 6.9, a guy who is, 36 years old.
I think he's 34, 35.
34,
but yeah,
37,
he's
38 years
not
old, maybe. I don't know. And a guy who's probably not going to be a Minnesota Viking. There's, I would say, maybe a 50% chance that he does not get re-signed at Minnesota and have a contract extension there with them. So unstable there. Like he could be a guy that ends up, playing for Carolina if Bryce Young doesn't pan
Very
out.
true.
And yeah, rookie. All that to say is I like Bryce Young, but it's a rookie quarterback situation. I don't think any of these rookie quarterbacks are really going to shine in the situations that they're in. I think we saw the reason why it's tough in Dynasty to get a good quarterback, because let's say you have that top 3 pick and you can take Anthony Richardson, Bryce Young, or CJ Stroud, your favorite pick of the 3, let's say. There's maybe a 50% chance that any of those guys pan out. And, even saying that they do pan out could look like a Kenny Pickett, where they're going to start for you for 3 years, but they're not necessarily going to produce a lot for you from that position. So for that reason, that's why I did my draft the way I did it. I want to get a rock solid tight end to just hold my roster down for the next 3 to 4 years in Mark Andrews. And I want to get 2 superstar quarterbacks, 2 guys that I think have top 5 QB potential this season, especially with the point per first down format with Deshaun Watson. He's already been very mobile in the preseason in the couple of snaps that we saw him get. And a guy, whether that organization likes him or not, or whether that coaching staff likes him or not, he will be a starter there for the next 4 years, just the way that contract has been structured for Cleveland. I love Deshaun Watson as my number 4th pick, and then just absolutely stack my lineup later on. If you want to watch that whole episode, I believe it's called How to Dominate Your SuperFlex Dynasty Startup Draft on my channel. Deron Payne recently went, your favorite guy, in the 23.6 slot. I was hoping that we could get a live draft pick. Caleb did watch my last video, and he did snipe me taking Jake Ferguson, a guy who I was hoping and praying. I was thinking he really was going to make it back around to me. I chose Greenlaw for the San Francisco 49ers as my second linebacker on my roster over him. I think he's just going to be a super stable asset on my team for the next decade or whatever.
So for the special people like me, can you explain what a super flex draft and how? Because I see 4 hours on the clock right now.
So
I am just bewildered.
We are doing a slow draft, so you have 8 hours to pick, and it pauses at like midnight or whatever, and it restarts at like 6 a.m. So you do have a little bit of time if you do fall asleep when you're on the clock. But it's super flex, which means you can start 2 quarterbacks. You don't have to start 2 quarterbacks. You have to start 1. But you do have to start. You can start 2, and of course, it's most beneficial to start 2 quarterbacks. And yeah, you can tell there's a lot of people who are doing a super flex for the first time in this league, which is why I felt comfortable waiting on Deshaun Watson or Anthony Richardson around the corner and locking down Mark Andrews right there, who would not have made it back to me. I think Jay Cobb would have taken Pitts instead. We do a slow draft. It's a 36-round draft, so we'll have 36 roster spots on the team. We also have individual defensive players, of course. It is a super fun format, a super fun, nerdy way to really enjoy football. And it's fun because this is a dynasty roster, which means you keep that roster year after year. So it's not a keeper where you only keep 2 or 3 guys. You keep all 36 guys. You manage the roster. You cut players. You pick players up off of free agency, and then you have a rookie draft every single year. So it's super duper fun.
And I want to say really quick, just in defense of myself, I've never done a Dynasty fantasy league before. This is my first time. I was extremely busy before the draft started to get super familiarized with it. I'm not displeased with my team, but I definitely did not gear up as I should have. And if you watch Jamie's video, there is a very solid reason for the reason he did everything he did. And I wish I could say the same. That's how you don't get Bryce Young and Kirk Cousins and Jimmy Garoppolo as your 3 quarterbacks and really pray that you're not the fantasy football equivalent of what your favorite professional fucking team is too, like the Vikings, where you're not necessarily in a complete rebuild mode, but you're also not super shoe in for competitive like week to week matchups. So don't want to be. Yeah, you don't want my team. I'm just gonna say that now. I got a lot of work to do, but it's gonna be fun.
You got work to do. It is gonna be fun. Yeah, your team. It doesn't know if it is a win now team. It doesn't know if it's a rebuilding team. But you do have a lot of really good assets. I mean, honestly, don't love the DK Metcalf at 4.9. I think that was an extreme reach when you can see, like Daniel Jones. You could have got Daniel Jones right there. It would have been a lot. If you have
that
Daniel
Nick
Jones
Chubb
and Kirk Cousins instead of DK Metcalf and Bryce Young, you're feeling a whole lot better about your roster today than you do at this moment. Because I think you did great with your first 3 picks. I think Nick Chubb is going to be one of those guys like Derrick Henry who is going to be able to produce as a running back in this league into his late 20s and early 30s. And I think Jahmyr Gibbs was ADP wise a reach, but once you guys see how the Detroit Lions are going to use Jahmyr Gibbs as a wide receiver when David Montgomery comes in, you guys are going to be super excited that you drafted him. So yeah, do your research. If you want to leave a comment, if you have a weird fantasy football league that you want me to cover to tell you how to do it, or maybe your certain formats or picks you're trying to decide on, please leave them in the comments section. Because that was one of the big excuses. I was talking shit with my other Dynasty league, and they were like kind of picking on me, and I was like, well, you guys passed on Jalen Hurts twice in a SuperFlex league, you idiots. So I got Josh Allen first overall pick. Jalen Hurts made it all the way back around to me, and then I got Nick Chubb on the 3.1.
Yeah,
that was my Dynasty last year. That's not like a 2 or 3 year old league. That's a last year draft, and they were like, oh, we didn't understand. Like, it was my first SuperFlex draft as well. So like, do your research. Yeah. Know what you're getting into. Know what the settings of your league are and how that's going to change the value to these positions, because a lot of people didn't even take a quarterback until the 7th round. I would say probably Brewdog, my other friend, much worse team than you.
I love his team
for similar reasons. Bijan Robinson, I love Bijan. I don't mind him taking him there. Jalen Waddle. So I've called his team wide receiver 2 because his first 3 wide receivers are all wide receiver 2s on his team. He took Jalen Waddle in the 2nd round, Devontae Smith in the 3rd round. He got TJ Hawkinson, which is like, whatever. But then he got Jahan Dotson, who honestly will probably become the wide receiver 1 there this season. Yeah. But, just a hilarious pick there. A young Cam Akers who did tear his Achilles, so I'm not super excited about him. Kyler Murray, a guy who's not going to start the season, will be his first quarterback drafted, and Aaron Rodgers, a guy who will retire after this season. So again, another team where it's just like, are you trying to win now or are you trying to build to the future? Because your first quarterback is injured and your second quarterback is going to retire this year, maybe next year if you're lucky and they don't win the Super Bowl this year. And then he's taking Minka Fitzpatrick in a league where you do not have to start a defensive back. Defensive back's incredibly unstable. With everyone thinking like, I want the guys who are going to get a lot of interceptions. Well, that's not really easy to hang on to. I know we all saw Trayvon Diggs get like 14 interceptions his rookie season, but there, if you're a lockdown corner, sometimes those passes aren't going to go your way, or safety, those passes aren't going to go your way. Taking Derwin James wouldn't be a bad idea. They took Patrick Queen and Will Anderson in the 10th, 11th, and 12th round. So he's taking Antonio Gibson, a guy who's going to be, the 3rd down back in Washington.
I actually traded for that pick.
Oh, that was you?
That was me. Yeah, I traded with him. I traded up because, I don't know. I mean, honestly, I probably shouldn't have, because I got Patrick Queen and Antonio Gibson. He took Mayer. I had Mayer, dude. I had him on my short list.
So that's even worse because he traded with you. He took Mayer, which is his 2nd tight end, right?
I think so, after Hawkinson.
So you have to, in our league, you have to start 2 running backs, 2 wide receivers, and you get 2 regular flex spots, which is like obviously usually 2 wide receivers. So he's got Bijan, Waddle, Devontae Smith, Dotson, Akers. How many is that? That's his first flex, and then he doesn't get another flex until, I guess, Marquise Brown at Arizona. So having him as your 4th flex spot, and then once you run into bye weeks and injuries, his next man up will be Odell Beckham and Rashawn Bateman. So
he's sold on Baltimore's offense. That's good to know.
And you have two absolute question marks. And look at his quarterback 3, a guy who's not going to start in the league ever again, Trey Lance. Like, just
I love that
defense.
The last pick you got, the defensive line pick. Deron Payne. I am sold on that man's team because he knows a great defensive tackle when he sees one.
Hell yeah. I do love Deron Payne. And Deron Payne, honestly, is a reason that you should not be taking defensive players early, because I got Deron Payne off of free agency, off of waivers in like week 6. He already had like seven sacks, and he was just sitting there because no one was really paying attention to the defensive position in our league. So you can get guys that break out and sign them onto your roster, so you don't have to really hold more than 4 or 5 defensive players on your roster at any time. It's really not worth it.
Yeah.
But yes, my name is Jamie Jakes. You can follow me at drjamiejakes on Instagram. You can follow me at JAMJKS on Twitter. You can please subscribe to the channel. You're getting on the ground floor. I think we have 17 subscribers as we are currently recording. I think we're like 3 weeks into this podcast. Leave a comment if you want us to cover certain subjects in the future, kind of like we talked before. Leave a like, share it with your friends, especially if they are planning on joining a SuperFlex league so they cannot make a total mess of it, like Caleb B. Davis's. Please, Caleb B. Davis, tell them what they need to know.
You can follow me on Twitter or Instagram at FunnyCBD. Don't draft Dynasty League franchise team or fantasy football teams like me, unless you want to really try to make your best count or your best picks count late in the draft, which is never fun to try to dice through. That's always awful. But yes, I am glad to be back and plan on being back every time I'm invited to this podcast. And let's see how this draft ends, and let's get right into the regular season of NFL football. That's what I'm excited about.
Caleb B. Davis and Drew Nickens. Talk about another guy who will definitely be on the show again. Definitely held his own. Whenever I have comedians on the show, I'm always concerned because comedians are always very confident in themselves, and they're like, "Oh, I'd love to be on your podcast because I'll be awesome on it." And then sometimes they'll get on and they'll forget who Derrick Henry is, and and be like, "You know that guy, that running back for Tennessee, Derrick Henry?" Like, yeah, that guy. That's rough sometimes. And you did great on the show. We're definitely going to have you on again in the future. We're going to be doing these shows. We're going to buckle it up to 2 times a week during the regular season. So I'm really looking forward to it.
It's going to be so much fun.
Drew, what do you have to report? What do you have to promote?
My name on Instagram, because I don't have a Twitter, because I used to be on pro wrestling Twitter too much. So I got in trouble with the Air Force. So I realized that, you know what? I don't need Twitter in my life. So I just stick to Instagram. It is Lance_Corona, my old battle rap name. You can catch me there. I do a lot of comedy around the area with these 2 great comedians. Thank y'all so much for having me on the show. You know, Deshaun Watson and Eric Benamy. We're going to get them. And I'm just excited for football. Did you guys know that there is a Washington Commanders bar here in Plano? It is one of the biggest ones in the country. It's called Austin Avenue.
Okay, well, we'll have to go there. We'll have to film some content there.
Yeah,
maybe interview the Commanders fans.
When we start beating up on the Cowboys, that'll be the greatest place.
Okay, let's do it. We'll go there. And we'll film some content live at the Commanders bar.
Let's do it
during the regular season when the Cowboys come in.
Yeah, that'll be fun.
All right. Hell yeah.
All right. Well, thank y'all so much for having me.
Awesome.
Hell yeah. Thank you guys, and good night.